Welcome to the Three Old Goalies podcast. Hosted by Greg Deutsch, Pat Johnston, and Eric Vauder.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Season 5, Episode 9 of Three Old Goalies. We're joined tonight by he's a soccer icon. G Guerrieri is the head coach at Texas A&M, and of course, as Greg said before, he's a former goalkeeper. He's a Hall of Famer, so we kept that streak alive, which is great. But before we get going, I gotta always give my legalese stuff. Three Old Goalies is produced by the Three Old Goalies and our pillar of strength, Ryan Sparks. We are an opinion show, and meaning that we have an opinion, and that's all it is, just opinions. And you can't have them, but you're welcome to share them, and you're welcome to disagree with them. The other thing is that we're Three Old Goalies, and sometimes we get a little crusty. And so if you need to put earmuffs on your kids, now's the time to do it. So, but without further ado, and this show, I believe, is going to be what this show is predicated on. This show is predicated by me and Bone on let's do a podcast that would be the same as if we were sitting at the bar at the coaches convention telling stories. And I have a feeling that tonight we're going to have a bunch of stories from Coach Guerrieri and from Pat Johnston, who have gone way back, evidently, and so that's what I fully expect tonight. Greg, welcome, and Pat, welcome, and Coach, thanks very much again for joining us. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Greg Deutsch. Coach, I'm sorry, but this is the cross-examination part of the show. So I don't know if he warned you about that, but that's what happens. So
that's all right. Just as long as there's no math, everything is good. We're all good.
Okay.
There we go. I like that. All right. Well, G, thanks again. It was a pleasure talking to you a little this week to prep you for what was going on. So, again, like I said, EV, we got another Hall of Famer. He was inducted into the University of Tulsa Hall of Fame in 2024, very recently. Played at Tulsa, was a goalkeeper there, 1981 to 1984. Still holds, and this always happens with us, records, right? At these schools that we always think they're going to be broken. So first, most shutouts in a season, 9.
Damn.
And then some career highlights here. Most saves in a career, 283. Most shutouts in a career, 21, and lowest goals against average, 1.09. So, I mean, if you do some average over 4 years, 7 shutouts a season is pretty impressive, back then, with the caliber of talent that was being played, University of Tulsa. So,
could I bring something
jump
up?
right in here, Pat.
I'm jumping right in here. Okay. I want you to think about something when we were playing, okay, and I know we're the crotchety old farts here, but back in the day when we played, there was no tactics about, keeping the game tight, shut out, we're going to hold the fort, low block, high. The teams just went out and played, right? I mean, for the most part, gee, I can't speak for your experience in college, but I know playing for Rennie, it was like, all right, when they attack, this is how we defend. And when we get the ball, we're going to attack. It wasn't so the point being is that the games were far more wide open in the 80s as college players. What do you think?
I agree. I agree completely. I think that perhaps we were more naive, and so it was just a matter of, it was kind of like, okay, you're going to punch me? Well, you're going to feel this one. And, just kind of rock'em sock'em robots going back and forth. But, it made the game exciting, at least from a player's perspective, because, you felt like there was always things going on. And and in those days, so for us at Tulsa, I mean, we played on the same field that the Tulsa Roughnecks played on which was on our campus during the old NASL. And it was artificial turf that was as hard as your kitchen floor. We played with a Mikasa ball, which was slightly more bouncy than a Super Ball. And so those things, with not having always the right footwear, or at least our opponents not always having the right footwear, to just the speed of the way the game was played, was just a different game in a lot of ways. And but my experience as a college player was exactly why I got involved as a college coach. And I knew that I wanted to go into coaching. When I was coming through high school, I had a great experience, coaching after school programs at the YMCA in my hometown in Richardson, Texas. And so it was, as I went in, I knew I wanted to be a soccer coach. I just didn't know what level I wanted to try to go to. My advisor was saying I needed to be, teaching special ed, because there's always going to be a need for that, or I need to do this, and to be able to coach at high school. And in my sophomore year, I remember going to my college coach at Tulsa, and saying, you know what, I know what I want to do. My freshman year was unbelievable. There's just the freedom, the new experiences, the relationships, the kind of the growing up stuff. I want to share that type of experience with players for the rest of my coaching career. That's what I want. Your job is what I want to do. And he's like, all right, whatever, get back in goal.
We're
going to go from there. But it really was that type of experience. Is myself and so many of the coaches, if you have something like that, you catch that bug, you hope it's going to be contagious for other people.
Gee, was that Bruce Pompom, or am I out of date here with the
Bruce? This was Walter Schnorr, who was a German coach. Bruce followed Walter after my last year of playing in '84. I stayed on in '85, did my student teaching, and I was assistant coach for Coach Schnorr. And then he stepped down after that year, had enough of me. And then that's when Bruce Palmbaum came in, and really Bruce kind of put the program on its feet. And then following that, Randy Waldrum came in, and then Tom McIntosh, who's been there for more than 25 years and has really done a remarkable job in all these different changing climates of helping that program to continue to move forward. So it's neat. It's good. I'm proud to be an alumnus of the university, but really for a lot of the people who came through in those times, it's pretty special.
So, Greg, I want to test your Maven status.
Well, first, Pat, I want to hijack this real quick, because I did some camps at R. Kelly Stadium with Mid-America Soccer Camp. So I've actually been there, and I still have my feet, because what both you and G are alluding to, I did these camps for Mid-America. It was 2 weeks in St. Louis, 2 weeks in Tulsa, and then 2 weeks back in, like, a week in Springfield, and then a week in St. Louis. The 2 weeks in Tulsa, you'd walk out at 9 a.m. They're watering the turf because it's already 95 degrees. And by like 12, it's like 105. And luckily, you had, turf shoes, because I don't know how people wore cleats. And what was funny is you do that session from 9 to 12, you go eat, and you're just like, oh my God, I just need to rest. And you come out at 2 and just be like, holy shit, I got to be on this field for another 3 hours. And it was just, you could just see the heat rising, and you're just looking at your watch. Come on, 5 o'clock, man, I got to go eat, and then you'd come back out and you just in gym shoes, because you were just coaching. Right. But my God, I can definitely relate to how hot that was, G. It was, what a memory I have. Obviously I can tell it like it was yesterday. Did you feel that, preseason training, or what was that like?
Oh yeah. They're literal heat waves over as you look across the pitch. The heat waves on the field, that were rising above it is. But again, you can look at the glass as half full or half empty, and we looked at it as it was a weapon for us, because people weren't used. You're going north sometimes to play against Tulsa, and it was hotter than Hades. Now they don't play on that field anymore. That's the football stadium. They have their own grass field in the middle of their track stadium, which is very nice. But for a lot of us who left a lot of skin and hair off our legs on that field, it's quite different.
Yeah. All right, Pat, what's your question for me? Go ahead.
Actually, you answered it. I was going to say, what is the name of that stadium?
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. How about that? All right.
That was testing. Now, I thought it was Skelly Stadium.
Yeah, after Skelly Oil.
So it was Skelly. Maven, gotcha, buddy.
You got me. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And that place, though, Pat, I don't know if you saw. I mean, they would pack that place.
Yeah.
Next game. I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
The old NASL Tulsa Roughnecks. Yeah, man.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. All right. So, G, you were, born in Chicago, raised in Richardson. What made you want to go to Tulsa? I mean, who was it? A few questions. Hey, we always ask these, questions about the goalkeeper people on our episodes. Who was really instrumental and influenced you at that, quote, high school age? Did you go to a lot of camps, and how did you end up at University of Tulsa?
Well, in those days, there really weren't that many camps. I mean, Dr. Joe had only just started his camps, and I did fly up to Connecticut because I've got family in Connecticut. So I went to, Joe Macknick's camp at the Loomis Chaffee School a long time ago, and then kind of playing and everything in North Texas on a team that was the best team in the state of Texas. We had a lot of opportunities, but for me, it came down to I was either going to stay in Dallas and go to SMU, which a lot of my teammates did, or I talked to Connecticut, I talked to Carolina, I talked to a couple of other places, but it just kind of came down to I had an opportunity. Tulsa was only its second season was my freshman year. So kind of the opportunity to go, and I knew I would play, and to kind of be a big fish in a small pond was an opportunity that I took advantage of. And my dad was a big influence on that. Obviously, getting your education paid for, he was quite motivated by that. And but in the end, because Tulsa's about 4 hours from Dallas, so it was away from home. It wasn't that far away from home. I could get home if I needed to, but I didn't know anybody when I went up there, and just all the new friends and really lifelong friendships that I've made while I was there as a student and even as a coach has proven to be really life-changing. It was a great experience. So and that's where my coaching career started there as an assistant with the men. And then, 86, I got an opportunity because the guy who I played with in club ball, a guy named Sam Hocking, was the goalkeeper at Rollins College down in Winter Park, Florida, and they needed a goalkeeper coach. And I had a job set up, and then at the last minute it fell through. And so basically, my old teammate set me up. I came in, became his coach at Rollins, and the athletic director at the time said, "Hey, for an extra $1,000, how about you coach our women's team?" And we're trying to get them to be a varsity program. And I was like, "Wow, $1,000 coach team? Yeah, absolutely, I'm in." So, I waited tables during the lunch shift, and then assistant coach for the men, and then under got him Hugh Beasley, and Keith Buckley, who's the coach there now, actually was a forward on the team at that time, which is kind of neat. And then that was my first experience coaching women, and was there for that year. And then I came back to Texas after that, and went on as coach at University of North Texas when they had a good men's program, and then was the head coach at Hardin-Simmons University for both the men and the women. And that was interesting because it was a dual Division I and NAIA program. So I could recruit Division I players, but then we knew we were going to get to the postseason with NAIA. And my women's team, we went to the national championship game in the NAIA in 1988. We lost to Pacific Lutheran with great coaching staff up there. Colleen Hacker was the coach at that time, and Colleen and I have been lifelong friends ever since. And then from there, went back when Hardin Simmons decided that they were going to bring back football after about a 30-year hiatus. And it was a good move for the school because it brought in a lot of students. It created a band, it created a cheer squad, a bell squad, a bunch of walk-on football players. They went from Division I to Division III. And I was like, well, good luck. I wish you guys well. I enjoyed my time, but this is not my path. And so I went back, coached again at North Texas, and then I got the job at Richland College, and in North Dallas, community college. I was both the men's and the women's coach there, the mighty Thunder Ducks, and we were really an extraordinary experience. I was doing that, plus I was the director of coaching for a club that Bobby Moffett had started in there called the Flame, and then I also coached the under-19 Dallas Sting, top team in the area. And then on top of that, I was the goalkeeper coach for all of the ODP teams in North Texas and working under Tom Durkin. And that whole experience was pretty special. And then had the opportunity, after 2 years at Richland, Texas A&M announced that they were going to try to start a program. I had literally just married an Aggie, and it was a situation of, okay, I'm going to go after this job. I always knew that if one of the flagship universities in the state of Texas started a program, there's enough talent that we could do pretty well based on indigenous talent alone. So worked on that, got it. That was in 1993, and I just retired this past October after year 33, coaching the program. And we had phenomenal success and some incredible people that I was able to bring in and be around, and it's been a really cool experience coaching women for all these years, getting in kind of early on the NCAA women's side of things, and then just the opportunities that now have come from those experiences are pretty cool.
Yeah, let me interject some things. Let me go way back. Let's talk about Rollins, obviously in Winter Park, a small place right next to UCF where I graduated from, and I'd love for you to comment on that lovely field. Okay.
Well, it was grass when I was there. Sands First Stadium. I think it's artificial turf now.
It is now, but I mean, it was a matchbox. Do you remember how tiny it was? And teams had a lot of trouble playing there. And of course, in case our listeners don't know this, I believe it still is one of the few schools that have a water ski team.
Yeah, like there's a ski jumping thing out in the lake. It's a total country club. It's at least in the 80s, students could take their student ID to the which was like a debit card. They could take it to the student union, buy steaks, bottle of champagne, whatever, go back to their apartments, cook it up, and and I was like, you do what? And you hang out by the lake the whole time, or by the pool, lake pool, whichever one's right for you. And then and then you basically you live in paradise for a while. Actually, I was there for a season, and the seasons never changed. And so I was kind of like, I gotta go somewhere where I can at least put a sweater on, and see what I can do that way.
Yeah, let's talk about the Texas A&M job. I mean, brand new program, like you said. Women's soccer Division I, is obviously starting to explode. A lot of money being thrown in, and of course, A&M being a powerhouse in football, there's a lot of money that's going to go toward the program. Did you have any idea it would develop like this? I mean, in case you guys forget, let me go over some stats here with G. Over 500 wins, not 500 games, 500 wins. We've had some people on, right, EV and Pat, but 500 wins. That's pretty impressive. 28 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances. That's in a row, right? That's in a row.
Amazing. That's amazing.
2014 College Cup appearance, 16 appearances in the Sweet 16, 7 in the Elite 8. I mean, like you said, just what a track record. Amazing. And, SEC Coach of the Year, 3 times, Big 12 coach. I'm going to put you on the spot here, G, with some questions, just so you know. If you don't want to answer them for political reasons, we know. Best 5 places to play in the country other than Ellis Field.
Oh, wow. The best or the hardest?
Well, I want to do it 2 ways. We'll break it down like you said, because I was going to say almost like what's the most, the 5 most places that are intimidating versus the 5 best facilities that, like, when you're on the road, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to play here if we got to go on the road.
Well, we always had big attendances at our place, and one of the things that, as I was developing the A&M program and developing the facility there, I was always pretty conscious of how it felt as a player, depending on whatever the crowd was doing or wasn't doing. And Ellis Field is one of the few college stadiums that's got seating on all 4 sides. So there's no escape from the 12th man. And the 12th man, again, is a copyrighted trademark of Texas A&M because of something that happened over 100 years ago with football, where they brought a guy out of the crowd because they were down to only 11 healthy players. Coach looks up in the press box, pulls a guy who's a spotter for the radio show at the time, pulls him out of the press box, has him go and put a uniform on of one of the injured guys, and basically stand next to him just in case someone else got hurt. Because if you go down to below 11 players, you have to forfeit, apparently, in NCAA football. So he stood there with the coach the whole time, never went in. But ever since then, 1922, the student body stands the entire game. So they stand and they sing and they sway. And I remember always going, man, this is a pretty cool culture to go along with our game. This fits right in with what I would want to do. So because we would play in front of full houses all the time, we would seat about 2,400, and we would average about 2,200 per game, with crowds as big as 8,000 packed in there sometimes. So honestly, most of the places we went, because of crowd issues, our players were like, whatever, not a big deal. But we went to some really difficult places to play in tough spots. I mean, talk about the 7 Elite 8 trips. That includes going to Chapel Hill a couple times. Includes going to Palo Alto a couple times. Going to Portland when Sinclair was playing for Portland. It included going to Tallahassee. There was never an easy one on the road. And it's funny because we used to laugh about, at home you couldn't hear anybody. We had to actually practice getting information across the field to our players because you couldn't hear what I was saying on the sideline. We would laugh that a lot of times you go on the road and you could hear, if there's 3 drunk guys over in the corner, you could hear everything that they were saying. So it actually made more of an impact than sometimes a full house did. But in the SEC, there's some great venues. South Carolina, number 1 in attendance right now, just a smoking environment. BYU in the Big 12, unbelievable environment. Jen Rockwood's done a wonderful job as far as creating something really, really special there. I think when Brian Penske, did a good job of helping to develop what became at Tennessee, and that's another great facility. The only problem with a lot of these facilities, and I tell this to our coaches all the time, is they're one-sided. So whereas, like I said, with Ellis, we built it so that no matter where you went, you couldn't escape the crowd. So many college venues, it's the crowd and the cameras are on the exact same. They're on the west side for setting sun. So when you look across, you're going, oh wow, is anybody at the game? It's just the two teams on the benches. And if they would show some of these crowds, it's full house. There's really, really good attendance in our sport. It's just we keep it a bit of a secret because the cameras are not focused on them quite as much as they could be. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, all good. I want to talk a little bit about your family because it's interesting. You have obviously an older daughter and 2 sons. This is pretty remarkable, guys. His oldest son played college football at Texas A&M, former punter. And I believe currently is Connor still, he's a male player practicing on the women's team. Is that correct or incorrect, G?
Correct. So my daughter Emily graduated in 2019. My oldest son Alan played for Jimbo on the football team, and then when he graduated in 23. Then when he graduated, he went and got his master's and played at the University of Louisiana over in Lafayette. And then my youngest Connor is both Alan and Connor goalkeepers, by the way. So both of them. So Connor is a male practice player for the A&M team. So Bobby Shuttleworth is the coach now, and Bobby and those guys have been really good to Connor.
So G, I got to ask, did you have that when you were there, guys? Practicing against the women, or is this something Bobby installed?
Oh no, we've had it for, gosh, it probably goes back to about 2002 is when we first initiated the male practice players. And really, we brought it in because basketball was doing it. We saw that our women's basketball team was doing it. We're like, that makes a lot of sense, because at the time we were playing in the Big 12, and John Walker's team at Nebraska was, I think there was a height restriction. You had to be over 5'11" to play for John's teams, and they played with a forefront. And it was, I remember him talking once. He was working with Evan Pellerud with the Canadian national team. He's like, gee, he goes, he's coming from Denmark. He goes, we look like Brazil compared to these guys. What he wants us to do with the Canadians right now. And Nebraska was uber direct and physical. And we had a bunch of young women who were 5'1", 5'2", and so we're like, we can't even practice against this, because we don't have any. No one on our team has a DNA of taking less than 2 touches. We're a high possession team. We move the ball quickly on the ground. So that's when Phil Stevenson, who was my associate head coach for a decade, or actually for 2 decades, he was the one who helped to kind of create the male practice team, and it was great. And the only rules were, listen, this is not a dating service for you guys, and our women can kick you all they want, and you can't retaliate. But you're going to get free gear, you're going to get tutoring, you're going to get advanced placement, just like athletes at A&M, and you get to play on this putting green of a surface. And they're like, just tell us when to be there. We will be there at the snap of the fingers. And it's been tremendous, because also, you think about like team chemistry issues of, all right, if you don't, with the male practice players, we could put them anywhere. So like I said, Connor was a goalkeeper. Well, Connor routinely in training sessions goes up against like the top forwards for A&M, and as an old goalkeeper, even though he's only 21, he's just trying to survive out there. And he's like, oh yeah, so-and-so really took it to me today. And I was like, well, that's cool. That's cool that you get to do that. So the option as a coach of putting some knucklehead guy out there, or going to one of your players who's not in the lineup and saying, hey, I know you play your center midfielder, you play as a 10, but I need you to go play left back today in practice. It's not always taken very well. And just the idea of everyone in practice is going to play the role that they're going to play when we play in games is actually, it becomes a really subtle but a really big thing for what the male practice players can bring to a team.
I mean, tell us a little bit about more. I mean, is there like a tryout? Like how do all these players, show how many quote male players are on the practice squad?
Well, we have about 9 guys who it rotates on again availability, because we trained in the afternoon. I think Bobby's going to turn to morning training sessions this coming fall. I think that's what I heard. So really, a lot of it comes down to their availability with their class schedule. Can they fit in there? And really, we don't need 11 of them. All we need is just to fill some holes and fill some gaps. And maybe we need a tall striker to play against and to deal with the physicality of what a guy would bring, or we need to play against super athletic back line that we can't just knock a ball in behind every time and get on the end of it. So there's about 9 guys. Most of the guys who are there typically play for the club team, the men's club team, which is actually quite good at A&M, competes nationally and has a really good track record over the years.
Yeah. So, G, talk a little bit about, Big 12, SEC, and ACC. Real competitive. Obviously, a lot of people rank them in a certain order. You've played in 2 of the 3 leagues. You've competed against all 3 conferences. Share your insight, on what separates each one. What are, in your opinion, some of the weaknesses and the strengths of each, without tipping the board, of course.
No, I think
to really get in trouble here.
There's going to be strengths and deficiencies for a lot of them. We're very fortunate that we were able to win 18 conference championships in Big 12 and the 12 in the Big 12 and 6 in the SEC, and you compare those teams against, for example, an ACC team. And again, the ACC is interesting because you have such a high top end. You got Duke, you got Virginia, you got Carolina, you got Florida State, you got Notre Dame. I mean, those could be teams 1 through 6 nationally, and often are. And then you've got a lot of times the teams that might be at the bottom are not, they can't really compete against those guys. Then you've got some really good teams in the middle. But the number 14 team is not going to beat the number 1 team in those leagues, because there is such a separation of what those high-end teams do. In the SEC, any day, anything can happen, because all the programs are well-funded. All the programs have really high-end coaches with them. So it's like, it really is kind of a chemical laboratory preparing for these teams, because you don't get the same. Your formula has to change based on the opponent and based on the coach and based on what those particular groups have. So Arkansas is known as being high press, lots and lots of pressure on you, very direct getting forward, big, strong, hogs on the team. Then you've got, when Becky Burley was at Florida, you've got, and Alan Kirkham as the coach, they're completely ticky-tack in the way that they play. You've got, super athletes at Auburn. You've got LSU this past year. I think Sean's team had probably 4 players who were 6 feet tall. So the physicality becomes a big part of it. So the one thing that's across the board in the SEC is you're going to have SEC athletes. And so it makes it to where when you're recruiting in that league, you have to look at it through the lens of, how is that player going to play against Tennessee? How is that player going to play against, pick your poison, against any of these teams? Because if they're not technical and athletic, if they're not tactical and athletic, then they're gonna struggle. They're gonna have a hard time with it. So it makes it to where when people say, "Oh, the SEC is just really, really physical and really, really athletic," not necessarily. I mean, because there are some really good coaches who are really putting together some neat things there. So across the board, I mean, whether you talk about Kadani McAlpine at Georgia, or Stephanie Golan at Missouri, or now you got Marg who left UCLA to come to Texas. I mean, any given night, anyone can win that league, and it's really it really makes it fun. I think you got to really keep track of what's going on all the time, because it's the ladder changes so often.
Yeah, great segue into the portal, right? It changes so often. The word culture, obviously, very very hard to find in the dictionary now because of the transfer portal. A lot of kids, in November feeling they're good about their chances, and then December hits with the portal and they get ghosted because all this pressure on the coaches are getting, good salaries. Their assistant coaches are getting good salaries. The AD's giving you great facilities, resources, et cetera. He or she wants you to win, and you need to find experienced players. So you're battling, that sophomore or junior or maybe senior with some good game film, with some experience, versus that 18, 17-year-old who really doesn't have any experience, even though she may have played at a very, very high level. She still has not played collegiate soccer. Talk a little bit about, the recruiting into that, because, there's two portals, in case people forget, the one in December, and there was 1,200, I believe, Division I girls in there. 700 roughly got signed. I think there were still 500 unsigned. Then it just opens this past week at 8 a.m. There's 300 girls jumping in. I don't know what it is now. But, it's a little scary, especially if you don't have film and you're a freshman, you jump in here. And just because you come from a Power 4 school doesn't mean you're going to get picked up. So obviously a lot of, thoughts here, G, so dig in wherever you want.
Well, I think with the portal, from a coach's standpoint, you've got to you have to have a strategy. I mean, what is it that who are you? Are you going to be a team that is going to build completely out of the portal? Because you can there are teams that have done that. Is it best for you to go after 22-year-olds in their fifth year, or to try to find someone that has, more experience coming out of it? Or are you going to be a little bit more traditional and focus on trying to bring in the top college or high school players coming into college, and then, find the missing ingredients through the portal? Or are you just going to go all high school kids? So a lot of that has become, I mean, it's a real mixed bag. It really is. And
Sure is.
And the portal, again, I think there's going to be even larger lines of delineation that you're going to see between the Power 4 and the rest of Division I. And, that's one of the differences on the men's side and the women's side. The men's side, they've got probably 25 schools that are Power 5. In the women's side, it's everybody. It's 67. Only Georgia Tech doesn't have a Power 4, a women's soccer program. So the line of delineation now is, there's no, there's roster limits, but there's no scholarship limits. So there are teams that have 28 scholarships. There are teams that have got, a couple $100,000 in NIL money that they can go out and go after people. And then you've got some people in the exact same league that have 14 scholarships and no NIL money. And so it's, there's a lot of haves and have-nots out there. And again, what's the most efficient, effective way for coaches to be successful in their shoes and with their athletic director? And, do the ADs understand that, we don't have this or we don't have that, and these other 9 people do? And how does all that work? I think it's really become more challenging. I mean, in the days when there was a 14 scholarship limit, if you had 10 scholarships, you still could compete. But now that you've got full scholarships and you've got money on top of it, it's really kind of put a thumb on the weights a little bit. And I think that makes it really, really challenging. And of course, the transfer portal is speed dating, is basically what it is. And so it comes down to first impressions. A lot of times when you're working with kids coming out of high school, you kind of want to be one of the latter visits, because they're comparing and they're going to look at things. With the portal, oftentimes first opportunity, I'll take it, thank you. And the coaches are going, listen, you need to tell me. A lot of these coaches are saying, you need to tell me by the time you go through the threshold of that door if you're coming or not, because I have 4 more people, flights lined up to come in. So I would say that the thoughts are not as pure as when I got into coaching 3 decades ago. It's become much more transactional, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, there's more money in the game. There's better opportunities for families. There's better opportunities for young women, and there's a lot of eyeballs on them. So it just makes it to where you really have to be careful in what you're going to go after, how you're going to bring them in, focused on chemistry still, because you don't want to bring bad eggs into the mix. And you've got to try to do the things that are going to be right for your school, but also for those players.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of moving parts, as you said, and every situation is different at each school. Let's talk a little bit about, the four of us have worked a lot of camps, been involved with a lot of camps. G, you had one of the biggest ones in the country. 6 weeks, 5-day camps, all overnight camps. When did you start this, and did you think it would get to this level? I mean, we're talking, fellas, $900 for a week. I mean, this is remarkable, and it's sold out every summer. So, G, talk a little bit about, obviously the state of Texas supports you very, very well, but there's also a lot of competition with camps. And now camps, because of showcases and all these events, you're thinking, or at least hey, it's going to go down, but yours has withstood this, is very sustainable. So, talk a little bit about that.
Well, my camp background goes back into the 80s again. Like I said, my first overnight camp experience was going to Dr. Joe's camp up in Connecticut. And in 87, I got hired on to for a week. I was doing some graduate school classes up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and was going to be in Kenosha, and there was going to be a camp. Soccer Plus was going to be coming, so I reached out to those guys, and at the time Dan Gaspar hired me to come on and help out with that camp. And then Dan had left by that time, but being connected to Tony DiCicco at that time was a phenomenal experience for me. And so I became one of the 3 directors for the Soccer Plus camps, myself, Matt Clark, and Bernie Watt. And and those were camps that we did all across the country. And it was really, number one, to be around Tony, because he was such a big influence on my life, but also just to be around some of the people that were brought in. Peter Bonetti comes in for a week. We've got, you've got Packy Bonner coming in from Ireland. You got it's unbelievable. The players for the women's national team, the players who are coming in from different types of circuits to come to be around. For a 20-something, which I was, it was just a really, really neat experience. And it taught me a lot about the camp business. And so when I started the A&M camp, we had 57 kids that first summer. And now, have turned that over to the Bobby and the program, but we would get about 3,000 kids in the summer, 600 kids a week. And that's about a 9-ring circus is kind of what that is. And because you're responsible for these kids for 5 nights. 5 nights, you've got to make sure that you've battened down the hatches, everyone's entertained, everyone's there's a lot of moving parts. And but at the same time, what we were able to do and how we built it was we're very, very conscious about how we wanted to go about it. And the people that we brought in, one of the cool things was the way that we ran our goalkeeper camp. Obviously I always coached our goalkeepers, but I brought another guy in to actually run the goalkeeper portion of the camp. So in recent years, it's been Bill Steffen. And if you guys know Bill Steffen, Dr. Bill, another Soccer Plus guy, did a great job. Before Bill came in, we had Rich Hardis, the goalkeeper coach for Manchester United. And Rich was with me for about 10 years and would come over every year, would bring over some of the younger pros from United. And just the experience of being around, having the people around us, the other Division I coaches who would come in to work the camp, because we had a lot of recruits that were there, especially in the older days, really was neat. It was, and for us, it was a recruiting situation, but we looked at it. Like our basketball program will have camps, and they're recruiting. They have their recruits who are like rising seniors in high school coming to the camps. For most of the time I was here, I would usually about 65% of my players came through our camp, but they came through the camp when they were 11 years old. And so we would start recruiting kids with the first kids. We wanted this to be, you get one chance at a first impression. And this was our opportunity to give them a first impression of what college soccer was going to be about. And so, we put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of oversight, and just making sure everything was going to be handled exactly the way we wanted it to. People could call me a control freak because I wanted to make sure that every kid's experience was going to be similar, which means that we had to have a curriculum that matched. We had to have, we would do demos, we'd have sound systems, we'd have, all the things that go along with it. Now, we just had the Savannah Bananas in town here yesterday, 1,000 people at. It wasn't quite to that extent. We didn't have anyone on unicycles going through, but you have to kind of, the way that we looked at it was, hey, these parents are our customers. They're paying good money to be here. We need to give these kids an unbelievable experience. And I always took that personally, and my staff always did a good job of it. And you'll see like numbers on social media about what, the A&M staff is the highest paid. They've got this up. Well, it's because of our camp. You bring in that many kids. It's not because of what the university is putting into it. It's what we went out and created ourselves. So a lot of pride in what the camp did, but also a lot of pride for the experience that those kids were having, because we wanted them to have the same experience that our players had, and to feel special when they were out there.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned about salaries, right? Of course, you just alluded to it real calmly. I like how you said that. You were obviously one of the highest paid coaches in the country. And again, coming from when you were growing up, did you ever imagine that you would gain the status of being that? I mean, you're up there with Anson and some other just incredible people, and credit to you. And it's an honor to be able to have you on the show and even talk about it, because there was a time, and we all know that paying coaches was a joke, and you've just climbed the spectrum to be one of the highest paid. Obviously there's a lot of pressure on you that you put upon yourself, because you're making that and you want to be successful. Again, talk a little bit about, like, oh my God, pinch me, wake me up. When was that time? I'm getting paid this amount to coach soccer.
Yeah, I know. I had a few of those. I mean, my wife, I remember, I was a phys ed major. I mean, we used to, my buddies would give me a hard time, in school at Tulsa as an undergrad, because I remember once we were in the dining hall in the athletic dorm, and there was like some kids drawings with my roommate had some kids drawings from one of the classes that he was doing. And one of the business majors like going, oh, so what's that? Is that y'all's homework? That's nice. You stayed inside the lines really well that time, Gary. And we're like, you sons of guns, we'll show you. And so those are the kind of the memories of, all right, if you want to do something, it just kind of comes down to it. With what I did was when I started at A&M, I started for $36,000. That was my salary, and we built it. It's a thing that we created from within, and the administration has tried to keep up with our competitors in the SEC, but it's something that I take a lot of pride in the fact that we had a pretty important hand in creating what those dollars were, and it's why I had assistant coaches with me for 25 years and a director of ops with me for almost 25 years, because nobody could afford to steal them away. Nobody could come and give them more money, because what we created in our summer business was so successful.
Yeah. Congratulations again. Before we get involved with what you're doing now, I'm gonna give it back to Pat and EV, because Pat, he shared some photos that I don't know if Ryan will get posted on YouTube so people can see it, but they were way back in the day, late 80s. You wrote a book about, and I'm going to plug you, Pat, here. So if you want to plug your sort of good segue here, if you want to plug your World Cup book, because World Cup's, coming upon us. You got to meet G, and tell us, your experiences with G during, that time when you guys were just shooting from the hip, because, that's how you got into a lot of these places that you've explained in the book.
Well, I found out earlier this evening that G and I we crossed swords on the field of battle in one of the most memorable games I can remember, which was a Region 3 final. I was a junior in high school, so G, I'm assuming you were a senior in that match. same year as Mike Chapman. Game went to PKs, and I think you were probably it was a painful loss for you because you guys outplayed us, and I just happened to have a good game that day. And
a very good game. You outplayed me is the way it worked out.
No, again, my delinquents could strike at any time, and we just managed to hang on there. But yeah, so I didn't even know that. But fast forward, okay, fast forward. So we're talking 1981, but let's fast forward to 1986, and G and I again meet in Mexico City, of all places. We're there for the World Cup, and G, you were with 7 guys, 6, 7 guys. I'm trying the entourage of friends that you had. Tell me about that crew real quick.
So what it was it was a group of my college, a few of my college teammates and a few of my high school teammates, buddies, who during our college years we would get together and do things all the time together. So I had there was like I guess 7 of us. You made 8, and Mike Chapman who played at Duke, Brian Gaines who played at North Texas, Steve Favica and John Girouse, who were both teammates of mine at Tulsa, and then Dr. Mike Reed, who's out in Palo Alto. That was our group, and we had been around each other. We'd done a lot of growing up together. So Mike Reed's mom was a travel agent, and we kind of arranged this back-assward trip to get pretty inexpensive flights. They knew somebody that had like an attic apartment, and so us knuckleheads were going to like sleep on the floor up in the attic during these World Cup games. And so we went down. The 7 of us flew down from Dallas, and then Pat flew over from Florida and met us there in Mexico City.
Yeah, and so we're cramped into this apartment. Do you remember the young lady? Her name was Maria. Really nice young lady. The daughter. We ended up like actually staying in 2 flats, if I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the neighbors said, "Hey, I want some of this," or however it worked out. But yeah, I think
some of this American stuff.
Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment. Let me do this too. This is kind of the way it worked out, probably.
We were proper guests, I think so anyway. But yeah, so we were all rookie. I was a rookie. It was my first World Cup ever attending, and so the first game we go to of all games is a Mexican game. So we're going to see the Mexicans in the Azteca, and none of it. We don't have tickets, and yeah. We're there, we're there. Did you guys have any tickets when you got there at all?
No, we don't need no stinking tickets.
Don't need no tickets. I got to tell you, when you came, when I knew you were coming on, and I thought back to that time, and I was like, man, how lucky were we to be able to go to these World Cups? There we go, bunch of handsome young guys. I get so itchy looking at my face with the beard on it. So,
hey, Brian, go back to that first one. Which one was G in there?
I'm on. As you look at it, I'm on far left with the shirt around my neck.
Yeah.
Next to me is Mike Chapman,
who
I grew up with since the 3rd grade, and then he went on. He's a Dookie, and then that's Pat next to him, and then next to him with the sombrero is Steve Favica, who's now a patent lawyer up in Chicago. And then the guys on the bottom row, Mike Reed is right in front of me, John Girouse, who's a famous cartoonist now, and then Brian Gaines. That's our crew. It was we'll get into that story in just a minute, because this day that this picture was taken was an aha experience for me as a as a young man, and also recognizing what the game does and how the game really unites people. And but we can get into that in just a minute.
Yep. So we were at we go to the Azteca, and we all end up getting tickets.
Oh.
And the story is in my book, where there were some in your crew, G, as I said earlier, that were like, no, we're going to get seats together here. And, you know, I was the first one to break the ranks on this and said, God, of course, you know, I was solo mio anyway out there. And these guys came together as a crew. I said, guys, there's not a chance we're going to do this. So I went and I acquired, I believe it was 3 tickets. I said, okay, I'm going to buy all 3. And it was some ridiculous, and when I say ridiculous, I mean in a good way. I think I bought 3 tickets for like $25 or something. Yeah. Because again, that was the other thing where it was like I realized the American dollar abroad, holy shit, we went over, we didn't struggle for eating, or we did well, you know, and it was the exchange rate really that played a large part in that. But so I come back to the group with my 3 tickets. And this is why I remember Steve. Okay. I come back and I go, guys, I got 3 tickets here. I got 2. I'll sell them for $12 a piece. Right. And Steve was the first one. I'll take it. Boom. Right away. and then it was, you know, it was said everybody was cool with, hey, let's go fend for ourselves here and sort this out. And it worked out. Everybody got a ticket. We went to the match. We made a meeting place, rendezvous place after the game, and we all got together there, went back to the flat, and then comes the next day or the next day.
The game, the Mexico game, I can tell you this because of the impression it made on me was I got me and one of the other guys got tickets together. We go in, we're kind of sitting behind one of the goals. And I remember walking in. So now Azteca, I don't know. I think Azteca is only going to have like 70,000 seats for this World Cup. For that World Cup, it was 118,000.
It was massive. Yes.
And so I remember when I came up through the portal into the stadium, I remember like losing my breath, like, oh my God. And having to go back to the concrete wall and kind of catch myself, like, oh my God, look at this. This is unbelievable. And I don't know if you remember, but we were interviewed. Obviously, we stood out. By
USA Today.
Yeah, USA Today did an interview of us, following the match, and it was, but to me, I had never been to a soccer game that was a quarter that size, let alone that size. And of course, Mexico, and and then I think they missed a penalty kick late, or they would have won it. So a lot of disappointed Mexicans as they're leaving. But yeah, so what it worked out, guys, is we were going to we wanted to go to different games. We would end up going to see Maradona and Argentina play at the Olympic Stadium later on.
Yeah.
But then we got word we met a guy who was like a taxi driver, and I think we just met him in a bar.
He's in the picture that I sent. He's in one of the pictures.
Yeah, he's in the front corner, and so he's like, yeah, we should go to Querétaro because there's going to be a game tomorrow, West Germany against Scotland, and we're like, hell yeah, we love the Scots, let's go. So again, we don't have tickets because we're the naive Texans, and so he gets us on a bus, and we're like crammed in the back of this bus, and it's like what you would picture. There's like chickens on the bus. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going out. It's about a 2.5-hour, 3-hour drive to get to Querétaro. We get there, we take a picture outside the stadium. I think that's the picture I sent you guys. And then we go into the match. Great game. Gordon Strachan is on the Scottish team. Obviously, Breitner and those guys who would play in the final later against Maradona.
So, G, in that game, I sat with the Tartan Army.
Yeah.
It was a madhouse. Hey, back to the Azteca real quick. Do you remember when the first wave? Because that was 1986 was the crowd and the wave. The Ola. And that wave when the Azteca was like the synchronization of 100 and something thousand people doing that it's pretty it just had me in awe, like, whoa, this is quite the experience. But anyway, back to Querétaro, because this is the pinnacle of the trip, in my opinion, for sure.
Yeah. So after the match, I think West Germany won 2-1, but the Scots won the fans. after the match, we've got to go back to the bus station, and it's like the Little Red Riding Hood, story where basically to get to the bus station, you can stay on the road, and it's 3.5 miles, and you just kind of follow it all the way around. You'll get to it, or you could go through the barrio, and it's a half a mile. It's right over there, but you just got to go through a pretty rough neighborhood, and half of us are going 3.5 miles. That's not such a bad deal. We can do that. And I think it was you and Steve are going, hell no. Let's go this way. We'll be fine. And we're like naive Texans. Sure, we'll be fine. So we decided to cut through the barrio, and we go along, and we come to this field, and it's literally a field. It doesn't have one stitch of grass on it anywhere. It's got white lines, which I guess was flour, maybe. They've got lines on it, and there's kids playing, and I say kids, they're probably about anywhere from 15 to 18 years old. They're playing, and we come in, and I don't know if it was you or if Steve or whoever, we're like going, hey, we should play against those guys.
Yeah, it was you guys. I can tell you, it wasn't me, and I know Steve was up for it, but I personally didn't want to jump in the game because I didn't want to get sweaty and nasty for that bus trip home, because that was going to be bad enough as it was. But yeah, we all ended up turning into a pickup game that we all jumped in. And the next thing you know, sorry, G, if I'm stealing your thunder here, it ended up being like a spectacle.
Yeah. We go into play, guys, and we're having the debate amongst us. No, we shouldn't play. What are we doing? We got the bus station. I can see it. It's out there. No, come on. We'll get a game in. This will be great. It'll be a lot of fun. This will be great. International, blah, blah, blah. We're like, oh, okay, sure. So we decide to play shirts and skins, a pickup game against these the Mexican kids. And so we're like, okay, well, we can't, we shouldn't all play. Some of us need to watch our stuff because we got our stuff over here. So we'd have two guys stay with the stuff, and then the other guys would play. I guess it was like 6v6, 7v7, and would go out and play. And so the game starts, and people from this neighborhood, they start coming out of their houses to the field. And there's 8 people there, and then there's 17 people there, and then there's 35 people there. And before long, it's pretty full all the way around. And we're going, wow, holy smokes. And we're like our sub is someone could come off to watch the stuff. And we go over, and little kids are coming up to us and offering us bottles of Coca-Cola. And we're like, wow, these are the friendliest people ever. And, we were worried about, going through the barrio. Now all of a sudden we're best pals with these folks. They're coming out. It's an unbelievable experience. So we're playing, and again, it's Steve, I think we're up 1-0, and we're playing, and Steve goes in for a tackle on a guy, and the kid goes down. And of course, there's no grass on this field. So the kid comes up with a mouthful of dirt, and we're all leaning in over him. We're kind of looking to each other going, we're going to lose the game, guys. It's time to lose the game. We don't, because everyone around the field are taking 4 steps in. We're like, who's going, give the goal away. And we end up losing whatever the score was by 1. And then people after the game are coming up and inviting us back to their houses.
Yeah.
Inviting us back for dinner. And they're, you've got to get, and there's, they're coming out with with pens and books and autographs and, Inglaterra. No, we're not English. We're Americans. Yeah. What are you talking about? But we stood there. We signed autographs for more than half an hour and just hanging out with kids. I mean, these are a bunch of, a couple of goalies. What are we doing signing autographs on a pickup game? But just the feeling of goodwill, just the feeling of what the game does and how it brings people together from literally different cultures and backgrounds. What it did, I mean, we all, I know for myself, I walked out of there 4 feet off the ground, just floating on air, just the way that the whole thing made me feel. What about you?
Well, I was going to say the one thing in the story that I think you left out is, remember at the end of the game they had like 16 guys on the field against us. It was they would, there was one guy who did step in to be an arbitro, kinda. Do you remember? But they just guys just, oh, I want to play, and they just come on and play, and it was like all of a sudden we're like, 2 against 1 here in the match and everything. We were going to lose anyway. They saw to that, but yeah, it was just like, you really felt welcome. It was just the transformation of apprehension into elation.
Yeah, if you pull that picture up again, you'll see, or a couple of those pictures that Pat shared, you'll see obviously the field conditions, but also just all the kids just around us. They just gravitated to come and watch the game. So this is pretty early on in the game, but you can see the field
lines
a little bit different than a lot of college venues these days.
And then there's a picture. There you go. More folks coming.
Yeah.
Yep.
That woman right there offered me tacos. I mean, real Mexican tacos. Don't go anywhere else with your minds, people. But there we go.
Yeah, there's Favica. There's John Girouse in the background.
The spirit of it. And then there's a picture of us all without our shirts that you had already shown, Ryan. That was from, I think it was post-match.
That's right after. So you see all the kids with the papers.
Yeah.
Looking back. Great time.
Yep. So
and it launched the Charles Dickens of soccer.
That's it.
That's what I was Johnston's writing career.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He was like, that was the inspiration for, got to do this more often, man. So the Odyssey of a Soccer Junkie, Amazon.com. Okay. And G, you guys are chapter 1, Mexico. Go figure.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, we ended up for the rest of that trip, everywhere we went, we would get pickup games with just the locals, just to have a little bit of a feel for it, whether it was in like a village square, on concrete, or wherever it would be. We would one of the first things we did was we went, PK was the mascot, little kid with sombrero, and we had someone went and bought like a $5 ball with PK on it, and so we would take PK with us, and that was the game ball for all of them. Just a small rubber ball is basically what it worked out to be, but great ambassadors of what the game should be. And you always think about the scariness of going to different places, and I hope that when people come to the United States this summer that they get to experience similar things that we did. Obviously, the cost of a ticket to a game in LA is about the cost of our entire trip, but for the most part, whether it's through the fan zones or through anything, I hope that people really that they embrace the people coming to visit our country, and that they really enjoy it.
Yeah, EV, this is the fourth person we've had on who've actually been in Azteca. I don't know if you recall, Bushy, Pat, G, and Stan coached.
It's actually the fifth person.
Who'd I forget?
Me.
Oh, you've been there. Which game?
I did not go to any games. And you guys were talking about, the way soccer was back in, the old days. Well, back in soccer in the Jurassic days, when I started playing, okay.
Cowskin leather balls.
If we were lucky. Yeah, no, it was a pig's bladder that was inflated. But right after electricity was invented, I'm growing up in New Hampshire and trying to be a goalkeeper, right? Well, goalkeeper coach had not entered anybody's. Those two words had never been put together when I started, and this was 1971. So the way I learned to play goal was, and you guys have heard this story before, I don't know if G has. My dad was a pilot, and one of his routes was JFK, Mexico City. Well, back when airlines were, real things and everything, they'd fly down, the crew would stay over, and the crew had a driver, Francisco, and he was a big soccer fan. And when my dad told him that his son was a portero, then Francisco was like, "Oh, he must get you to the game." So I used to go watch Mexican League games in Aztec Stadium, sit behind the goal, and watch the goalkeepers because I didn't know. I mean, other than you could catch the ball, you know. And then I would go home and train myself basically because nobody else was going to train a goalkeeper. And so I was back in Aztecas, and I remember going to the Mexican League Championship between Toluca and Club America.
Wow.
And it was, and as you said, G, back then it was 118, 120,000 people, and it was nuts. Yeah. I mean, and same reaction from me. I was like, I'd grown up being a Boston Bruins fan. Well, the old Boston Garden held what, 14,000, 15,000 people. You walk into Azteca Stadium and you're like, oh my God. And it's like, as you guys said, it's beyond what you think. It's like seeing the Death Star in Star Wars. You're like, holy shit, and that's basically how I learned how to play goal, was just by watching these guys, and when my dad could have a trip down there and then coming back and doing it myself. So, again, Azteca awesome. Stadium.
We might have a sixth. If Alan Adams counts as an official guest.
That's right. That's right. He played in it.
I bet he played in it. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. I love it. All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Right,
so that might be a name is Alan Adams.
Yeah,
Texas boy, about 5 years younger than you, goalkeeper.
You probably coached him in ODP, G.
I wouldn't be surprised. There was a lot of great ones that came through. A lot of really good keepers.
All right,
G. So fast forward. So what are you doing now? I mean, you and I talked. I'd rather you talk about it. I brought up, because you're still involved in the game. I had talked, guys, with G earlier in the week about 2028 men's Division I soccer going to have a split season. I don't know if you guys heard me. That means starting in November, or starting in August, September, and ending in May. Take a break. Thanksgiving, come back in January and play on. Students don't have to be housed, don't have to be fed. They come in as regular students. January, there'll be a couple of preseason games. No portal until middle of May, end of May. And I was asking G, did he like it? I'm going to, we'll get his answer on that. And then, what about the women following, and, what the sense of that landscape is. So, G, I'm going to turn it over to you. Obviously, a lot to talk about here as we try to wrap this up here.
Yeah. So I've been on and off. I've stepped in the role as the chairman of our national coaches group for Division I women's soccer. First did it back in like 99, 98, 99. Then kind of got back. It was handed back to me not too long ago with United Soccer Coaches. And as we're kind of going through it, we kept on through a lot of different activities. We would find ourselves that what the men wanted to do and what the women wanted to do were opposite ends of the spectrum. The men wanted A, B, and C, and the women wanted X, Y, and Z. And it kind of culminated this past year. We've been talking about that the women needed a voice. The women needed a voice that's specific to women's college soccer. And so we've been talking about for years about, well, we should have our own women's college association that's still part of the United Soccer Coaches, but it's specific to women, just the same way like high school coaches are still in the United Soccer Coaches. So we've been talking about doing this, and and it came out that we would go ahead and we would start the Intercollegiate Women's Soccer Organization for Coaches, IWSOC. And what the IWSOC is it started by a group of college coaches and run by college coaches. So the four founders of it, the initial founders of it, are Janet Rayfield, who's former University of Illinois, former United Soccer Coaches president. Tom Stone, former teammate of Pat at Duke, and incredibly successful coach at Texas Tech. Lori Walker Hawk, who is been at Ohio State for many years, incredibly successful. Another Hall of Fame coach, another old goalie, by the way, and myself. And people have been saying, yeah, we need to do this. We need to do that. Because we can't be clear in what we're talking about, because people would come to us and say, okay, guys, what do you want? And they'd say what they wanted. Ladies, what do you want? And they'd say what they wanted. And they didn't go together. So they're like, well, you guys need to get your act together and come back. And we've been saying for more than 10 years, men's college soccer and women's college soccer are different sports. Don't treat them the same way. Men's volleyball and women's volleyball, different. Men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse, different. It doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong, but so we were like, okay, we're going to go ahead. So we started the IWSOC. It's a nonprofit corporation based here in Texas. And now with myself retiring, I've kind of stepped into one of the leadership roles. But we were kind of pushed into this a little faster than we wanted to when U.S. Soccer decided to come out with their white paper. And I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with the white paper that they had, but it's basically they came out with exactly what the men are wanting to do, which is, players would start when school starts in August, late August, early September, play X number of games up until Thanksgiving, take a break, and then come back when things thaw out in the spring, and then have their championship in May. And the women were like, well, that's not what we want to do. We've been working on a proposal and got it passed to basically expand the women's season. So it's the same number of it's an additional 2 weeks of games, which gives you 4 additional single game weekends. And you take the preseason, which has always been 16 days, and now it's 28 days. So the whole idea was, on the women's side, was we need to decrease the opportunities for injuries. We've got to find a way to take the injury rate down in women's college soccer. And at the same time, can we find pockets of media and other things that can help us out? So, and the men want what the men want. And the big answer to all of this is, what lens are you looking through? How are you looking? I wear glasses. So if I'm talking about soccer, period, and I come from a background that is, I come from Europe. I played under the FIFA calendar my whole life. That's I watched United and Liverpool play earlier today. I'm into this. The championship, we only got two more games coming, all this stuff going on. That's my filter. That's the lens that I probably am looking at things through. If you're a women's coach in the United States, you're looking at it in a different filter. If you are a player in the United States, you're looking at it through your filter. And so I think a lot of times what comes up is, as a bunch of old white guys, we tend to look at things through our filter, and maybe our filter doesn't go with what the environment is that we're talking about. So one of the clear things that we're proud of is the number of women that we have that are head coaches in women's college soccer, Division I, Division II, Division III. Like I said, there's 67 of the 68 teams that are Power 4 schools have women's soccer programs. Men have, I think, 212 teams total. Women have 350 in Division I, 420 in Division III, another 220 in Division II. So more than 1,000 women's programs, and about 40% of them have female coaches, which is exactly what we want. That's the kind of experience we want to try to have, teaching our young players and helping our young players. It's what a lot of players want. They want to be coached. They want to be coached by women. On the men's side, not that many women coaching the men's game. Kim Wyant, another old goalkeeper, is one and has done a wonderful job at NYU, and there's a couple others. But the thing about our coaching profession is you want to be able to, just like we talked about with us building our program and the camps and everything else that came along. Our program is we want longevity in this. We want to be able to build something that's sustainable and that we can build on top of. We're not looking to grind people out and toss them to the curb. And so for a lot of our young women coaches, you guys had a great one on the past podcast. She's a mom, she's a wife, and she's a hell of a coach. And that's three big barrels to carry throughout the time. And so when you're looking at things through the women's filter, you've got to think about, okay, we do want to sustain women's coaches, and women would like to be able to have parts of their world that are specific to, that we can kind of, compartmentalize different things. It would be nice if we can compartmentalize more of a recruiting portion of the year, more of a developmental part of the year, more of a total competition time of the year. And then the other thing is on our side is, you've got rosters that, if you're playing every game, this is what we keep hearing from a lot of our coaches is, if every one of my games counts, in the spring we can play 5 dates, so you can maybe play 9 games, different types of games in the spring. Most everyone's playing in those games. You have a pretty happy roster in the spring, and the people who were upset in the fall, they're coming around a little bit in the spring. They see there's a little bit of cool water that's been tossed on the fire, and the chemistry of the team can be built. That's a big part of what we try to do, is to try to, we're trying to develop women that are going to be leaders and are going to be, successful in everything that they do. And to be able to do that, you've got to be able to keep whatever size roster you're going to keep. You want to be able to kind of keep that thing together if you possibly can. If every one of my games count, I typically use about 16 to 17 players per game, one goalkeeper, and we'll rotate whatever. And there might be some injuries, but if I have a 28 player roster and I'm only using 17, I've got some people pouting at the end of the bench, or at least I've got their parents pouting up in the stands that are there. So that's something it's really important to our coaches, is that we want to try to, we want to make the season safe and expand these games and have mostly single game weekends if possible. But we also want to have a united front in our locker room, and we want to be able to have things that, like we're talking about, lifelong friendships that have come through from the college experience. And college experience and the pro experience, they're not the same, even though there is a lot of NIL money in women's Division I soccer right now. That's a benefit. So how can we make these things all a little bit better? So the women we're 100% for the men getting the full year season. But it doesn't mean it's right for us, because, more than 80% of our players and more than 80% of our coaches, when polled on it, said, no, we want to stay in the fall. We want to expand our fall to do the most that we can in the fall, and then keep our spring as a purely developmental spring. We'd love to be able to do some more stuff in the spring. So maybe we should talk about that, but we don't necessarily want to move our split our season up. We did that in 2020, 21. It didn't go great. So that's kind of the big thing on that, is that we really do hope the men get it. They still have a couple hurdles to get through with NCAA council and everything else, but we keep hearing good things about it, that they might get it. And worst case scenario, if it really goes great, if they get it and it goes really great, women are fine with looking and talking about what could be done in the future. So, but again, what lens are the ADs looking at? How do the ADs look at this? Because they're always telling us, if I've been told once, I've been told 5,000 times, well, if I do this for you, I got to do it for everybody else. So how many other sports are trying to go that route? How many extra people do they have to hire for athletic trainers, for all these different types of different issues? Again, that's not my lens, but I can understand it, because I've been told it by athletic directors in the past. And for the women, we got what is called 2024-62. That was the season expansion for the women's soccer passed in 2024. It goes into effect this summer, and we're pretty excited about it because it does give us a chance to ramp up during the preseason, and it gives us a chance to really spread those games out. I know in the SEC, for example, they're going to use you have 6 single game weekends easy. They're going to use all 6 of them in the SEC portion of the season because those are knockdown, drag out brawls, and you need more recovery time to get prepared for that one, but also to recover for the next one and get prepared. So it's an interesting time, but it is what it is. And again, that's what the IWSOC is about making it to, because when the white paper came out from U.S. Soccer, Paul Payne, who's awesome, president for United Soccer Coaches, Paul came out and his comment was, we support our coaches. If our coaches are for this, then we support this. Well, they have coaches on the men's side, they have coaches on the women's side. So that's when we said, listen, as the IWSOC, as kind of the leaders for legislation and for other issues along these lines, and that's the collaboration that we have with the United Soccer Coaches. We are a separate entity, but United Soccer Coaches still is going to be doing education, still doing convention, still doing the awards program, which is fantastic, and individual coach development. The IWSOC, what's in our lane is NCAA legislation, representation with U.S. Soccer, with the different pro leagues, with the youth leagues, creating events and basically publicizing and promoting women's college soccer, because there's a lot of good news and a lot of incredible people. 19 of our 22 gold medalists from the Paris Olympics came through the college program on the women's side. And it is something that it's the envy of the rest of the world. So we just want to be better stewards of the game and just help people to understand what it's about. Does that make sense?
It does. It certainly comes full circle. I'm going to toss it back to EV and Pat. Just a wealth of information. What a great episode with G, telling some interesting things, and obviously what a wonderful past, great career. What an impact on not only soccer but women's soccer and all the people that he's come into. And you can definitely hear the mentoring in his voice, or at least I can, of the passion and the love for the sport on a global basis, especially here in the United States as he takes over a new direction to help the game even more. So back to you, EV and Pat.
Well, I'm gonna defer to Pat here because the photos that these guys shared from Mexico. Go ahead, take us home, Pat. Take us home, Pat, with G.
It's a good, what we say this all the time. It's a good thing there was no social media back then. This is as close as you're going to get to looking back on that. And when flat bellies and hair on head is the best way to describe it.
No, it was fun. Again, I just look at it as we were fortunate to grow up in a time where we could show up without tickets and have a shoestring budget and have these kinds of experiences, And again, you used the word earlier for a different context, G, but we were naive in a lot of ways. Of course, we were young and stumbling through it, and just what a fantastic result that came about of it, really, from the end of it. Now, back to modern day stuff, I'm not going to go into this long because I know we're running over here, but the whole 5 for 5 is going to make this whole landscape interesting. This thing's coming up for a vote real soon as well. So 5 years of eligibility, that's it. No red shirts, and your clock starts ticking at a guaranteed time and ends at a guaranteed time. And seems like a good idea, actually, because it's just the Wild West right now.
Totally agree. I totally agree. I think, and again, as a father of boys who played, I think potentially it could really put up some nice guardrails for young American players coming through. Even though 5 years is going to be a little wonky as far as how you handling all that stuff, but making it to where that your clock starts when you're 18 or 19 at the latest, I think maybe solves some of the problems of the 27-year-old Finlandiers coming in or wherever.
In their sixth year, in their sixth or seventh year,
Yeah, so
crazy.
The NCAA has just struggled with what our cherished attorneys have done, and it's nice. It's nice to see that they're trying to get their arms around something, and there's just so much common sense that goes along with this. And again, it'll come down to the ingenuity of the coaches in their world, on their campus to see what's the best way to handle it for the game.
All right.
Okay.
All right, EV.
Well, G, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to hear all the stories, and it was an absolute pleasure to hear about IWSOC. And I had actually listened to you on College Soccer Nation, and because Church was like, you got to listen to this, Valder. And so, I always try to do what Church says because he was the coach after all. So, but yeah, and I think it's great, and I think as you said, a lot of moving parts, a lot of obstacles, a lot of hurdles, but if we can bring it home and make it work, it's magic. So but again, thank you for taking the time to be with us on Sunday evening, and we would love to have you back at some point.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. And again, Robbie Church is a gem. Robbie and Matt and Brian do a great job with that.
They do.
Gee, and thank you so much for listening. We definitely need as many followers as we can.
Yeah. Have your camper, if Ryan can edit it out, have your campers listen to us.
Oh,
there you go. Well, it's not my camp anymore. I have.
Okay.
Passed that on. I have checked out.
You have ridden off into the sunset.
Taking in the Texas sun. I'm kind of looking forward to it.
That's great.
Now remember this though, guys. Bobby, the current coach, is a former goalkeeper.
That's right.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, yeah. So
14 years in the pros. He's a good guy.
There's a lot of connections there. I mean, the assistant coach is Mark Birch from Cincinnati. He was
Bobby played for Aiden at Wilmington, didn't he?
No, I think he was at Buffalo. He played at Buffalo,
okay.
I think, and he's from the Buffalo area, so he's another upstate New York.
He's happy. He's a happy camper right now.
Oh yeah.
And then his female assistant Alyssa, she's a former pro. So I mean, his staff is very, very good.
Yeah, Ali does, and Ali does a good job.
Ali about him, yeah. So
all right, guys, I got to run.
Fellas, thanks for everything. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening to the 3 Old Goalies podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. Follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed the show, give us a like or a 5-star review. That helps us reach more listeners just like you. And truly, thank you for being one of our 3 listeners.